Welcome, everybody. This is Stacking Surfer, and I'm excited to be back again. It's Happy New Year, 2025. And I've got everybody's favorite guest, Andy Schectman from Miles Franklin here. He's the president and CEO. And Andy, welcome to the show.
Good to see you, bud. Happy New Year, my man.
Happy New Year. I'm just getting my voice back. I got hit pretty hard with a cold right around Christmas time. And then it got all better. And then all of a sudden I got some kind of a throat cold on Sunday, and it's finally getting better. But I sound a little bit weird because it like just attacked my vocal cords. That was it. Really weird.
Well, you sound just fine to me, but I wish you and everyone out there a happy and a prosperous and healthy New Year. It's going to be an interesting one, I think, man. I'm going to be, I got this 10-minute stretch where the sun comes right through a window way up high, and it hits me right in the eyes. So if I move around a lot, I'm just trying to not be blinded. But no, man, it's good to see you, and it's going to be an interesting year.
I think so too. So to kind of start it off, we've got a lot of things going on. President-elect Trump just was basically confirmed yesterday by the House. And so everything's now moving towards his inauguration on the 20th. Everything's been super quiet, which has really surprised me. I think this is the first time in 100 years the Democrats have not opposed during the certification a Republican president. At least I read that somewhere. I don't have empirical evidence.
That's shock.
Something I've heard. So I was very shocked. And for how loud everything was politically leading up to this election, I'm shocked that we're not hearing a whole lot now.
They're just doing things quietly behind the scenes to screw his administration. Like the first 2 months of the fiscal year, October, November, they've gone nearly $1 trillion into debt. That's the worst 2-month start to calendar year in the history of the U.S. Treasury. It took to 2009 to reach that level of stupidity in an entire year, and now they do it in 2 months. All of the laws that he just signed into to law about drilling offshore along the coast of the United States, hundreds of millions of miles, cumulatively. I think it was that large anyway. Massive square mile acreage of non-drillable U.S. coastal land or sea or whatever you want to call it. I'm sorry, I'm at a loss for words. All I'm saying is that he's now, Trump's drill baby drill, and he's coming in and doing all he can. The escalation in the Ukraine, the escalation in Syria. I mean, you're telling me that Biden had anything to do with any of these things? My bigger question is who's doing this? Who's pushing all these buttons and doing all of these things, selling the border wall at 5 cents on the dollar? I mean, it's just, so they don't oppose it, but they just screw them in every other possible way. It's still grotesque as can be.
Yeah, there's definitely things happening behind the scenes. It's just too quiet. It never happens like this. So, the one caution I give to everybody is just pay attention to the news. Come and listen to Andy talk. He's on my channel as well as a lot of other channels. We're going to have quite a bit of information for you guys, and just stay tuned for what's going on. But like you said, Andy, I agree. I think this is going to be a very interesting year. I think we have, one of the things I wanted to hit off too is we've got a president and some of his cabinet that's talking pretty heavy on crypto. That's not to say that they don't like gold and silver. That's not to say that they're abandoning those metals or have anything negative with them. I bet most of them probably have precious metals in their portfolio. They've just been more vocal about crypto, specifically Bitcoin, anywhere from taxes to a reserve. What are your thoughts about that? Do you see this being something that could affect prices short-term, long-term? Do you think it's anything that people that stack precious metals need to be concerned about? Or do you think it's something that just, could potentially help and strengthen the country? Or do you think it's not a good idea?
I don't know how I look at it. I look at it in many different ways. Sure, there's an opportunity to make a lot of money. take that money and put it into real assets. I mean, let's just break it down little by little. You got the central banks of the world doubling down. They bought, you look at the amount of gold they bought in November, doubling the 12-month moving average. They're buying more than ever right now. They're not doing that with Bitcoin. And they're doing it with money that they traditionally put into U.S. treasuries. Instead of putting those reserves, that money into treasuries, earning a yield from the safest destination in the world, they're putting it into gold, which has bettered the performance 2-to-1 of the 10-year treasury over 25 years, but no counterparty liability and no inflation risk that they see as stark. And so that money that was supporting our debt, to me, if I did some try, let me put it this way, I can't shake out of the back of my mind that it's no surprise, therefore, that this administration has been vocally supportive of cryptocurrency, because the inflows, the increasing inflows, largely institutional inflows and retail, but into crypto, they're by default, if you will, boosting the reserves available to be recycled into U.S. treasuries. All of the stable coins are 85-90+% backed by U.S. treasuries and U.S. dollars primarily. So it's supporting the legacy system, which is the cruel irony of it all. I did an interview with Francis Hunt. I'm not saying that this is my view, but this is Francis's view, that he said Trump was selected. I said, what? He said selected. You can go watch it on my YouTube channel. He said, there are people pulling the strings, nameless, faceless, pulling the strings, that he was brought into, and his cabinet, to do just that, to bring in the digital system, roll in the digital ID, which he just announced he was going to do in the name of election integrity. We've been talking about that for a while. Yeah. That was obvious. But if you look at the patents, who's behind ID 2020, it's Bill Gates, it's the Rockefeller Foundation, and the big, I forgot the name, the big, they're not a pharmaceutical company, but a think tank, if you will, for vaccines. And it's scary as hell when you read, just Google Bill Gates digital ID 2020 patents, and you'll find a trail. And then it's the same cast of characters in their cashless society group. There's a company that he has as well. And if I were to put my glasses on and start digging through my computer, I'd find it. I've done talks on it. But it's scary that they're all tied together in that way. Now, I'm not saying this is the case, but what I am saying is that he said that he was brought in specifically, that a lot of the stuff we saw over the last several years was orchestrated. They didn't put up any opposition in terms of his running mate, who he was running against, and that he would come in and take over with a cabinet that would reinstill American ideals and culture after 4 years of living in bizarro world, that would be primary. And people would appreciate that his cabinet would be one of a digital focus, and look at Elon, and that people would be more and more comfortable with digital, ultimately moving, I suppose, to a digital surveillance state, cashless society. Now, I'm not saying I believe that, but I do think that if you haven't, over the last 4 years, learned to question everything. And people get pissed at me when I say, is Trump the Trojan horse, or is he riding the Trojan horse? I don't know. I'd like to hope that he's riding it and not it. My point to you is that after what we've lived through, you have to question everything. Everything we saw primarily over the last 4 years has been a lie. And that's proven true, even all the way down to pardoning Hunter Biden. It was a lie right in our face. I would not do that. No. And then he does it. And if he was a gentleman, he could have still pardoned his son. I'm a father. I get it. But at the same time, he could have said, you know what? I'm pardoning Donald too. This shit's got to end right now. And he didn't. And he just created more of this divisiveness. And he's leaving. He did it in a chicken shit way. Just left and went to Africa. Didn't even face the music. And then all of these decisions that they're making at the 12th hour as a lame duck president are just beyond concerning from the standpoint of what the hell are they doing this for? And do they really care about our country? So if they're doing it on the way out, what are they going to do to challenge him once he's in? I think there's a lot of caution that should be used right now. The exuberance borders on irrationality in the fact that, if that's a word, irrationality, let's just say it's irrational in the respect that we've lived through a really weird time and an awful time, and I think getting our culture back is warranted to be exuberant and to be psyched and to think that, yeah, I mean, thank God he's here, and I'm personally do feel that way. But there is an awful lot of issues that must be resolved, and banking issues, debt issues, not to just to name a couple, and those are big ones, and the list goes on from there. But what Biden is doing on the way out is just insanity.
Well, I agree, and I'm hearing a lot, and it looks very viable. And you just touched on this too, is, and we don't know the answer to this yet, but is Bitcoin being used as an instrument to keep the U.S. dollar alive longer? And you had Tether. We talked about Tether a little bit last time. There are some things that look like this might be a way to try to keep, a little bit more life into the dollar. Coming from a gold and silver background, banking background as well, a lot of people don't want to go back to a gold standard. And, there's questions whether we could. Do we have the gold? A lot of those things there too. But let's say we had the gold, and let's say we were able to go back to a gold standard, which for everybody that's watching does not mean that it has to be a one-to-one backing. It could be a percentage. We've discussed the BRICS potentially going at a 40% with their unit currency. But a lot of times the politicians don't want to do that because it puts them into more accountability when you have a gold back. They can't just go and start issuing all these bonds and printing more money without people knowing about it. It becomes too obvious, and then you start to unpeg. Is there a possibility of that out there?
Well, I had Judy Shelton on my show recently. Amazing lady. Her book, I got it here somewhere. Where did I put it? Here it is. I'll show you.
I haven't watched the interview yet, but I've got it bookmarked too. I definitely want to.
Yeah, this is her book, Good as Gold. And it's a great book. She's smart lady. Chances are she'll be part of the Federal Reserve Board. Hopefully. She was an advisor to Trump's previous administration. Very neat lady, Austrian school economist, believes very much in gold, has an idea to issue 50-year treasuries redeemable in gold. And she thinks there's a probability anyway that Trump will issue them July 4th, 2026, which will be the 250th anniversary of the country, and that they almost issued them in the previous administration, but did not. So I asked her what everyone wanted to know, and that is, well, do we even have the gold? Why did they not audit it? Why has it not been audited since 1953? And she said basically the reasonings that were always given were bullshit, too expensive, logistically challenged. I mean, she's like, spend a few $1 million and do it. We're the United States of America, for crying out loud. We can do this. That would be needed to be done immediately in order to restore that confidence, along with selling treasuries redeemable in gold, which would also install confidence. She said something that was very interesting. She said, and I could see them issuing stable coins off of those redeemable treasuries. And she's a very forward-thinking person. I asked her an interesting question too. You should listen to it. I said, who the hell in their right mind chose a 2% inflation target? I said, because in 10 years, that means you've lost 20%. I said, when my dad graduated college in 1963, he was married to my mom at that point, and said that $6,500 a year salary he was able to, right out of college, was able to support he and my mom comfortably. So did the dollar lose all of its value, or did everything just get really expensive? I don't know. That's the point. And her answer was fascinating. But yeah, I think that look, the Bank of International Settlements wouldn't have reclassified gold as the world's only other tier one reserve asset. Let me put this up here a little bit. If it weren't part of the plan moving forward, and the accumulation by the central banks doubling and tripling down recently would not have happened or continue to happen following a 2-3 year trend if there weren't some very substantial things coming for gold. Something just happened that really caught my attention. So we've always talked about JP Morgan's role in suppressing metals and how they paid a $920 million fine for manipulating the metals market, right? And they were the custodian and still are the custodian of the world's largest silver trust, SLV. So here it is, a company that admits to manipulating the market. Their head trader, Michael Nowak, who I've met before, is still in prison for manipulating the silver market. And they're allowed to continue to be the custodian of the world's largest silver trust. And then we would always, obviously, people would say, do you think gold will be confiscated again? And I would always say, well, to me, it wouldn't do them any good to confiscate the gold. It would be better to confiscate the ETFs. I've said that on 500 podcasts, going way back. I mean, way back. Even before JP Morgan was known to be who they are. So I said, look, it would be much easier to take the gold held by the ETFs, which would be the largest stockpile of silver and the fourth or fifth largest stockpile of gold, without breaking any laws or infringing any civil liberties. Be much easier to do that. Look the world in the face, say, well, we didn't do anything. You can still buy this stuff physically. We just closed a couple of ETFs, which we have the right to do. So HSBC Bank was always the primary custodian of GLD. Well, guess who it is now? JP Morgan actually has now become, it has taken joint custodianship of the world's largest gold exchange traded fund. And it's now transferring all of the bullion that's inside of the vaults to their own vaults in London and New York. And it's interesting. JP Morgan now, between the gold and the silver, just the gold alone that they're holding on behalf of GLD, it's a greater total of gold reserves than a large majority of the G20 nations. And so it's interesting when you think about this. Why would they do this with no obvious gain, or et cetera? Are they doing it because they were told to do it? Maybe. Are they preempting something? Is gold going to play that integral role, like Judy Shelton talks about? The BIS reclassifies it, and the BIS, you guys, they're the world's most powerful bank on the planet. They wouldn't reclassify gold tier one, the only other tier one other than U.S. Treasuries, if it weren't important. The unit, as you talked about, 40% gold backing, deliverable upon request, central banks buying it hand over fist. Where's Bitcoin in all this? I don't know. The public's sure buying it, and it's done really well. Why aren't the central banks doing it the same way? They talk. Cynthia Loomis talks about the Bitcoin strategic Bitcoin reserve here in the United States. Well, funny, she also talks about funding it by revaluing the gold held supposedly by the Fed on behalf of the Treasury. Revaluing it to what? And why did JP Morgan take possession or be the custodian of both SLV and GLD? Could they say, we're going to confiscate those two funds and remonetize or revalue the price of gold? Those of you that still own physical, you can keep it. Instead of doing this 1933 executive order to steal gold, they would just take all of it held by JP Morgan with a big pink bow wrapped around it, massive stockpiles, and let the little crumbs that the rest of us public own stand. It would be such a tiny minority that it really wouldn't matter. I don't know. I just think that I wouldn't count gold out, and I wouldn't look at Bitcoin as the savior. I would own it. I think there's certainly room to own it. But I would also not be afraid of taking that profit and using it to pay down your debt, like they're talking about, the government. They're not talking about doing it to get rich. They're talking about it to pay down and pay off their debt. I would use it to buy assets like the rich are doing. The wealthy don't have massive bank accounts, so sure they do, but they have lots of assets. So if you have these profits locked into Bitcoin, take chips off the table, buy gold, buy silver, buy farmland, pay your debt off, buy assets, and not just ride this wave of uncertainty, no matter how compelling it looks. That euphoria that spills out dopamine makes you feel like a rock star. It can be dangerous if the rug gets pulled to any degree. And with the financialization of the Bitcoin market with Wall Street, you know, and you look at Wall Street, you have 6-to-1 insider selling versus buying. The insiders are leaving, the public's buying. I mean, there are so many warning signs conflicting with this euphoria. And a lot of the euphoria I get, but don't get blinded by the euphoria when it seems too easy. Probably is.
Well, I agree, Andy. When you start hearing everybody talking about a certain asset class, you know it's starting to get a little frothy.
Right.
And so, you know, one thing I also second what Andy's saying, guys. You know, I hold some cryptos. I know Andy has some Bitcoin. It's a very small percentage of my portfolio. For me, cryptos makes up less than 1% of my portfolio. I know people that like to go up to 10. That's a little too risky for me personally. But 1%, if it disappeared on me, is not going to kill me financially. And like Andy's saying, you want to be taking profits as it's going up. The problem with cryptos is most people don't take any profits until it's going down, and then they wait too long and they end up losing money on them.
Right.
You know, it's so speculative. That's why you see these big swings up and down. Today, we're seeing a big swing up for gold and silver. It's been kind of beat down the last couple of weeks, but you know, be careful. Look at what you have. I agree. Farmland, the things that you really want in life going forward, if things get crazy, is farmland, gold and silver, and you want to be able to have access to water. I mean, those are the things that matter the most for you.
Yeah, you're talking about the swinging. Just a couple of points, if you don't mind. I don't mean to interrupt, but so the central banks have been buying tons of gold. We talked about that happening, and they're doubling down in October and November. The Bank of India bought 50 tons, or excuse me, 30 tons in October and November, 20 tons just recently, for a total of 50 tons so far in the fiscal year 2025. And China's been you know, buying massive amounts. They claim that they're now buying it again publicly, but the import-export numbers that came out of the UK said they've been buying massive amounts all year long. It was a lie. But the one thing that and there was an article that says China's purchased just from the import-export numbers since the Ukraine war started, 1,000 metric tons, 60 tons monthly since it started, while at the same time selling 250 billion worth of U.S. treasuries. So selling treasuries, buying physical. But one thing really caught my attention, and that was the amount of deliveries that we've seen coming out of not only the CME, but also, which is COMEX, but also London. But really, a big delivery in silver came out of COMEX in December, 45.8 million ounces. And that's either a delivery or an exchange for physical, where the metal this contract is purchased in Chicago, or New York rather, and then delivered in London or China. Hong Kong has a COMEX contract. So on one hand, the Silver Institute says that we'll have a deficit of 282 million ounces for 2024, sixth consecutive year, way over 1 billion ounces of a deficit over the last 4 years. You have deliveries happening in silver to the tune of almost 50 million ounces in 1 month, which has continued for the last, this is a continuation of what we've seen for the last couple of years. And we saw in London, 800 and let's see, what do we just see? I don't know, huge amounts coming out of London. They had, looks like, I can't even tell. The numbers are they're not out yet, really. I don't want to speculate, but huge deliveries out of London as well. So that's one thing that really caught my eye, is that we're seeing a spike in deliveries off of the exchanges, and they're using the suppressed price to do it. And whether it be doubling down on their purchases or standing for delivery, they're misdirecting. The biggest money in the world is misdirecting not only their purchases, which have grown tremendously over the last couple months as the price of gold has softened. Even that, it was up 30% for the year, but they've doubled down, and now they're taking huge deliveries of both gold and silver off the exchanges, and large amount in December. That size delivery was very unusual in the month of December, but kind of emblematic of what we've seen over the last several years. Can't hear you.
Sorry, it got loud here. The wind's picking up here. For any of you guys that are near LA or Southern California, we got a lot of winds and a pretty good sized fire going. So keep those people in your prayers, please.
Yeah, I'm gonna say a prayer for my assistant's family as a house in Palisades, and they are evacuating as we speak. And it's a beautiful house, and it's scary. She sent me the video. It's absolutely scary.
Well, those fires burn hot too. It's and they come fast. You have to move quickly. Oftentimes, you're just dropping it and running. So those can be pretty freaky. One thing I just want to throw out there, guys, real quick: hit the thumbs up if you haven't. That wakes up the algorithm and really helps get this message out there. The other thing I just want to throw out, Andy, I finally figured out how to get a ticker working. I need to work on it a little bit, but
way to go.
If you guys want to reach Andy, info@milesfranklin.com. Caps don't really matter on an email, so you guys know that, but just let them know Stacking Surfer sent you. He's got great prices. He's great to work with.
The inventory that they would request at that email address are far more competitive than what we have on our website, and than what most companies will sell for. We keep that close to the vest for a myriad of reasons.
But what I like too is you're working with someone that's a professional that has a lot of education. You're working with someone that understands economics as well as the precious metals market. So you're not just buying from a website that's not communicating with you. You're not buying from someone that's say a 22-year-old out of high school that's a telemarketer. You're buying from people that know what they're doing.
100%. Almost all of our brokers are people I've known my whole life who had successful careers unto themselves before they came to work with me, whether it be on Wall Street or buying and selling businesses through private equity, or distinguished careers in college in places like Wharton School of Business or whatnot. So yeah, I'm very, very proud of my staff. They're friends of mine before they were ever part of my company, and we certainly will be able to answer any of the questions with no obligation, anywhere from geopolitical questions to economic to just basic questions on metals and rights and wrongs and do's and don'ts, IRAs, you name it. We do it with no obligation whatsoever.
So I think it's awesome. I have a friend that was just selling a bunch of gold over the weekend, and it went quickly. And he was selling gold to gold dealers at a coin show for quite a bit above spot. Gold is in demand right now. I know a lot of people may be struggling to buy it. If you're struggling to buy gold, look at silver. If you're struggling to buy silver, work on finding other ways of either saving money or producing more income. A side hustle, do some other things around that can generate a little bit more money for you guys. But there's a question that came up, Andy, I wanted to hit real quick. Yeah, right here, because I think this kind of addresses what we were just talking about. But do you think we are close to a financial crisis, and does gold or silver tend to do better in those situations?
I think that there are a myriad of things that could precipitate a crisis. I mean, I really do. None more so than in the banks, which are really over leveraged and very much undercapitalized. I think that not to mention, I mean, if you look at the stock market by every single metric, just about, the market is historically overvalued. At the same time, by every single metric, we are in a recession or on the heels of a recession. And on every metric, everything from the Claudia Sam rule to the increase in money market numbers, which are at a record of over $7 trillion, to the reinversion or the uninversion of the yield curve, every single thing that has accurately predicted a recession, we're here. Every single metric that has ever predicted a market top, we're past it. And yet it continues to go. Market breadth, where only 7 stocks are pushing up the industry. And I like, there's an analogy of those 7 stocks are the generals in the military, but the troops, the Russell 2000 as an example, which is a broader measure of the economy. The Wilshire 5000, they're not part of the war. They haven't confirmed yet. They don't believe yet. They are the economy. That doesn't work well. It almost always ends badly. Insider selling at a rate of 6 to 1. Bezos selling $12 billion of Amazon. Zuckerberg, a couple $100 million in Meta. $2 billion plus in insider selling in NVIDIA. These people wouldn't sell if they saw amazing things coming. The Buffett indicator at its highest level ever. Buffett in record amounts of cash. I can keep going. And then you talk about what's happening right now in the commercial real estate industry is crazy. $2 billion in commercial real estate loans went into delinquency just in the month of December. And the delinquency rate of office mortgages that have been securitized and wrapped into what's called a commercial mortgage-backed security. They take those mortgages, they bundle them and sell them to Wall Street. The delinquency rate on those right now is at 11%, the highest ever. It's higher than what it was in the 2008 great financial crisis. There's a million things precipitating it, plus a deep state who's really deeply pissed off. And will do what they can. You can see the president is doing what he can to sabotage the administration's agenda. What's the deep state going to do? They've already, someone's already tried to kill him twice. So I would say the exuberance is dangerous, and profit's not a 4-letter word. So what does better? Probably gold. I mean, silver is the most undervalued asset in the world, and the central banks are buying it too. But there is something historically significant about gold. The central banks reclassified it as the only tier 1 asset in the world next to treasuries, buying it at a level the world has never seen, taking possession of it in a way the world has never seen. Also, all of this under the cover of exuberance and market dynamics that are not natural. People can say what they want, but I've done this for 35 years, and maybe it's a new world, I guess, a digital world, artificial intelligence world, where you can make those kinds of returns over and over and over again. From where I come from, you make 7% a year, you're a rock star. But that's why no one appreciates gold's 30% rise this year. What did gold do? Only 30? Goes to show how far we're distorted from reality. Mother Nature's pissed off. Mother Nature will show people what valuations really are when interest rates and asset prices find some equilibrium. We're not there yet, but yeah, there will be some sort of a reset. There will be some sort of a collapse. There will be. When will it be? Don't know. What does it look like? Don't know. But while I still think silver is the most asymmetrically undervalued, great upside potential asset I've ever seen in my life, to answer that question in an all-out craziness, it's probably gold.
Yeah, I like gold a lot too. I've got silver and gold. I have a little bit of platinum. But honestly, gold is the one that will shine here, in my opinion, based historically. Silver could blow our socks off too as well, but that's going to take a couple other dynamics to happen. My caution I give everybody on cryptocurrencies is this: anything that seems too good to be true usually is, to a pretty good degree. I know they're just starting to get more and more adoption. If you look at the Bitcoin halvings, they continue to have a smaller and smaller gain for people in each of those. If you're going to play in the crypto market, if you're going to play in the stock market, anything you're dealing with that's not a physical, tangible something you're holding in your hand, like farmland, gold and silver, water, food, supplies. It's always important to do your homework and see how much more you're paying a premium for something. For example, in the stock market, most stocks are valued multiple times above what their current earnings are. Those PE ratios are starting to get out of whack again. It's getting overvalued, and therefore you could have a big, pullback. Cryptos are getting high. We're hitting all-time highs on Bitcoin. That could be pulling back again. And at the end of the day, the cryptos don't work outside of their network. So if we ever have any issues with electricity, whether it's temporary or long-standing, you're not going to have access to those funds. So, keep in mind that. I love Andy's advice about, diversifying and making sure you have a few other things that are out there too. So Andy, I had one other question on here that came up. And if any of you guys have questions, please put them in bold for Andy. And then I had a couple I'm going to pull off of the web earlier. A quick shout out to JT Coins. Thank you for the super chat. Andy, he's really cool. He actually takes coins and turns them into rings and sells these rings to people. So he ended up taking a Morgan dollar I had and turned it into a his and her matching ring that I gave to my wife for an anniversary gift. One of the gifts we did.
I saw someone do that in a bracelet form recently as well. That's a really cool idea.
So it's pretty cool there. So 2 other questions here. This is one that just came up, and I think we kind of talked about this a little bit. We didn't necessarily address this exact question here, but you kind of talked about how Bitcoin may have taken away some of that, that excitement of gold hitting 30%. It should have been all over the headlines in the newspapers. It was a big deal.
I don't think he killed it. I think he gave it a timeout. Let's say
a timeout,
but a timeout.
Or give us time to buy more of it.
Well, but the thing of it is that the central banks are buying more than they did during the Biden administration since he's won the election. So that should tell you all you need to know. That the people in this country are reactionary and they think by the second. They don't think big picture. And the central banks around the world, sovereign wealth funds, they're using this lull, I think, to continue to reposition. So yeah, he didn't kill it. I think he just temporarily stopped it because, again, people are motivated in two ways, by greed and by fear. That's the primal motivation. And people who've been buying gold really haven't been buying it to become rich. And at the same time, I would argue that's what most of the people buying cryptocurrency buy it for, not to protect themselves. I mean, to a small degree, they understand it, problem with the dollar and whatnot. But, I just think that there will be a switch between the greed and fear mentality at some point, because the euphoria it's in some respects overly justified, in others very dangerous. And I think that's the part I think hasn't been factored in yet, is that the retail side of things industry wide are very quiet right now. But what's really changed, I think we're putting an awful lot of faith into the problems are so big, I don't even know how you begin to address them. And he's fighting an awful lot of people who, as you can see, don't want him to succeed. So he didn't kill it, but I think he did put it in a timeout, and it's the risk on trade right now. So embrace it. If you're a crypto guy, do it, buy it, hold it, take the profits and put it into the undervalued asset, gold and silver, and leave your original asset and let it continue to grow. That's how you diversify within the primary trend. And instead of being broadly diversified in asset classes that don't move in harmony, some go up, some go down, some go sideways, identify the primary trend of a falling dollar, in my mind, ultimately, and broadly diversify within it. So that would mean cryptocurrencies and physical precious metals, would mean farmland, and mean oil and gas. This is how you broadly diversify within a primary trend. And if one asset starts to outperform the other, take some of the proceeds of the winnings because profit's not 4-letter, and allocate it to some of the underappreciated assets. And this is how you become broadly diversified within a primary trend rather than blindly broadly diversified, being the best of the worst of the worst of the best.
I second that too. And it's why I named my channel Stacking Surfer. I do like to surf, but I'm not a pro surfer. I picked up surfing when I was 40. So I've been doing it for a few years and enjoy it. But it's also about surfing the trends that are coming, guys. Right now, there's a trend. It's risk on. We've also had a trend in gold. We've seen gold go up over the last couple of years from, $1,700 or so, maybe a little bit below that. And we got close to 3,000. So, that's another wave, another trend that's going. So look for the trends and look out for those, because those make a big difference.
Sonny says my heart goes out. Mine too. And my good friend Bill Holter lived in Bastrop and lost everything in his house but the safe. And he had tubes of Silver Eagles that he sent back to me, and they were melted, and the coins were like green because the top is green. And we were able to melt it all down in our smelter and refine it. And he got 99% of its value. Everything, including his golf clubs, gone, except the safe with the melted silver. So yeah, it is scary. I showed you.
Yeah, do you have that video?
Yeah, I'll pull up the video. This is my assistant right now. Her family's home.
Yeah, that's way too close for comfort.
They're evacuating right now. That's in Palisades. I don't know. You look out your door and see that, man. I think you may have issues.
When I think, Andy, too, it's just another point to put out for people too, is get a good safe. I think a lot of people are underdoing the amount. They're not putting enough money into protecting their metals as well. I live in a fire risk area. I've got a strong safe. I live in an area where we've had Chilean cartels break in, and they've taken hundreds of thousands of dollars of watches, and they've broken into safes. They've taken gold, silver, and cash. They leave all the electronics. For that reason, I get strong safes for anything I'm keeping at my house. And then I also look at vaulting offsite as well. But if you're going to have metals in your house and you have a fire risk or you have flood risks and you've got a lot of silver, you want to make sure you've got safes that are waterproof, fireproof. You want to make sure they're security proof. They've got multiple layers of steel and concrete in them, and you want them to be heavy so people can't just take them. Make sure you're doing that, because I hear from people, where can I get a safe on Costco? If you're buying it from Costco, if you're buying it from Amazon, it's probably not good enough if you have more than, say, $20,000, $30,000 of precious metals.
Well, $20,000 worth of gold. You're talking, well, here, these are certified.
It doesn't have to be a big safe.
These are certified $20 gold pieces right here.
Yep.
That's 10 of them. That's it. That's $27,000 worth. But if it were $27,000 worth of silver, it would be about 65 pounds.
Yep. So just make sure you're protecting stuff well. So Andy, a couple other questions that came up, because I know we just have a little bit of time left, but we've got a few minutes. Glint. Everybody loved the Glint video, but they had some questions around that.
Sure.
And so this is just a question that came up here. If you could maybe enlighten us just a little bit more, just maybe a quick overview of Glint, why it's something that you are involved in. And then I know some people have had issues signing up. Others have had issues with how much you have to put down.
You shouldn't have to put down basically anything.
I don't think it's very much. I think it's like $100.
Yeah. So the Glint app is... Here's my Glint app. Just a second here. Here's my Glint app. I just open it up. I can buy gold with it. I can buy silver with it. I don't have a lot. I have $9,000 worth of gold and silver on my Glint app. And I can use this credit card that comes with it. And if you type in, I think it's Andy24 when you sign up, you'll get one of these for free. It's really amazing when you use this card at like that. It will deduct instantly off of your Glint app. The metal's all held at BRICS in Zurich. It's a company with people that I have grown to respect tremendously and really like a lot as people. I am the U.S. contact for them. I've worked with BRICS for 2 decades without ever even an issue in my own business, and we've delivered 200 to 300 million in product all around North America in our BRICS facilities. Never seen an ounce out of place. It's software that blows my mind. Over $50 million has gone into this software. It connects with and reconciles not only with MasterCard, but also with their back end and with BRICS in just like 20 or 30 milliseconds. And so the ability to hold gold and silver that is easily redeemable outside the banking system. Now, I know this is part of the banking system, but the metal is held in a vault, audited continuously in Switzerland, in BRICS. So I don't know. I think it doesn't take the place of the physical metal, but it's a nice, I think, complement to it to give you some utility for your gold and silver. And you can buy it. It's kind of democratizing, if you will. You can buy $1 worth of gold. You don't have to, I don't know, maybe to open the account, you got to put in 100, but you can buy. Here, let's try it. Should we see if we can? I don't know, see if I can do this. I'll hit buy gold and let's do $1. Oh, has to be $5. Okay, so let's go
Okay,
$5. Can you see that?
You'll have to pull it over a little closer to your.
Let's go. Let me do this. Hold on. All right, so I'm going $5. Okay, and payment method, Amex. All right, now I'm going to review it. I'm buying $5 worth of gold and paying 15 cents payment processing. And I'm going to confirm it. I'm going to get the American Express thing probably, but let's see.
And you can do ACH with it too after you do your initial purchase.
Yes, and you can. And so there's the safe key thing. Did you buy it? Yes, I did. Open up. It's going to say, did you spend $5 in a second? Yep, I did. Done. All right, so watch. Now it's going to go back. Watch how fast it goes up. There it goes. It's going up right there. So I just bought $5 worth of gold. Okay, so would there be capital gains with the Glint card? Good question. Yes, if you are selling gold that went higher, there would be. If you are selling and it goes lower, there'd be a capital loss. And when you use the MasterCard, you can choose if you want to use dollars or if you want to use your gold. So you can sell dollars. You can fund your US dollar account and use that, or you can use your metal. So it's a debit card off of here. And at the end of the year, KPMG does they don't know who you are. They do it anonymously. They will provide a capital gains sheet for your taxes at the end of the year. So look, it's not, doesn't take the place of the real thing, but also for those people who have this in the United States already, and let's say they want to cash out in physical metal, we will be the people in the United States to do that for Glint. And so you could transfer your metal into physical metal with us. It's a cool program. And if you have a nice assortment of metals already, something to think about.
If I were to do that, do I get to pick what I can convert it into if I want eagles or rounds?
Yeah.
Or silver or gold?
Yep.
Okay. So the other thing I'll add, I had a lot of questions on this from people over the last couple of weeks. Both Andy and I will agree that if you don't hold it, you don't own it. However, if you get to a certain point in your life where you have enough wealth that's being gold and silver, a lot of times you get to a point where you're not comfortable leaving it all in your house. You want to start to diversify it into different vaulting facilities as well. In addition to that, some people may want to have gold that they're holding out of the United States, which this is. Another thing to look at too is if you have a checking account with fiat dollars in it, this is a great alternative to doing that, where your dollars aren't going to be losing value over time.
Right.
Your gold should be going up for the most part. It depends on when you buy it. There's going to be mini cycles inside of this bigger bull cycle that we're starting into.
Correct.
And so if you were to take, say, the amount of money you're going to put into property taxes for this year, and you put it in your checking account every year and you just let it sit there for a year. If you put it into something like this, where it's going to be in the form of gold, I can't guarantee you, but most likely it's going to be higher valued, whereas your dollars are going to just sit there, since property tax probably isn't going to change. However, your purchase power for other things could definitely change. So I see this as a good alternative to a checking account. I see this as a good alternative to a kind of forced savings account.
Yeah, to me it would be, you know, the checking account, debatable. I could see it. The savings account more so, because you're saving in something that is averaged over 9.9% appreciation compounding per year for 25 years. But more than anything, you're out of the banking system. And the banking system, I believe, is really the linchpin of all of the chaos. A banking system that is wickedly over leveraged and undercapitalized in an environment where rates are going higher, which will only reignite the same problems that we saw last March and April with Silicon and Signature. Add on to it a commercial real estate problem that is exacerbating, with up to $1.5 trillion in commercial real estate loans coming due this year that have to be refinanced. Record level of delinquencies, record level, even surpassing the 2008 financial crisis right now. That's ominous. Trump is walking into a hornet's nest, and they're making it worse for him. So, you know, that's why I think right now it's almost better to sit on your hands than to make an irrational decision chasing this risk on trade. You know, or at least don't risk more than you want to, are okay with seeing a big pullback on.
I agree. So Andy, the last question I have for you today, I threw this into my thumbnail because it's some numbers I've heard out there in the marketplace. And I put question marks on there because I don't exactly know where you stand, and I'm still doing some of my research. But so there's a two-part to this question. One is, what would it take for us to get to $3,500 gold and $40 silver, which is about an 87 on the gold to silver ratio? And what do you think we could see is realistic for a high of both of those metals this year?
You know, people put too much attention onto what the Federal Reserve is or isn't doing with their interest rates. Goldman Sachs kind of backpedaled on their $3,000 gold here this year because, the Fed may not lower rates because inflation's reemerging and means nothing. Ultimately, we'll see the price continue to move higher. It moved up 30% this year. It's averaging 9.9%. So even using 9.9% from where we are at 26.50, that puts us at 3,000, pretty dang close to it anyway. But look, I think one of the things that I would be concerned about, one of the things that I think could, or several of the things that I think could ignite that fuse. Let's start with the banking or financial crisis. Things that are very systemic in the financial system, and I think that's one of the things that could ignite that type of an event. And I would bet dollars to donuts that we will see many more banking failures in 2025. Will they be like Bank of Lindsay, Oklahoma, which was the first bail-in, and yet no one talked about it, but I did. I screamed about it. But where was CNN and Bloomberg and Fox and all of the so-called media pundits those folks lost half of their uninsured deposits and they're not getting them back. And so that's an interesting thing. I think that aggressive monetary easing. So the central banks may need to implement large-scale quantitative easing again, right? Because interest rates are increasing, and that will destroy the banks and that will destroy the market. That's why Trump wants low rates, also to make money easier and stimulate the economy. But you saw what's happened. The Fed lowered the rates on the front end by 100 basis points. In the back end, the 10-year Treasury went up by at least that much, if not more, signaling, no, this ain't going to be easy. We will not take any duration Treasuries. The bond vigilantes won't, unless the rate goes higher. Ultimately, the rate goes higher, but I could see them quantitatively easing to drive down the rates, and then also yield curve control, where they're buying the back end of the bond market because no one's stupid enough to do it. Creating a very big problem in the bond market. But nonetheless, I think they want to increase liquidity and debase the currencies. All of them do, to make paying off this debt easier, which leads to high inflation above expectations. I think this will drive investors back to gold and silver as inflation hedges, is the realization that the Fed has already waved a white flag to inflation. They're 65% away from their target rate, based upon the Fugazi numbers that they use, which, the CPI is the CP lie. It's way off base from what real inflation is, and they continue to massage and change it. In April of last year, coffee was up 85%, so they replaced it with tea. That's what they do. It's a big and total lie. It excludes food, energy, and housing, the things that are going up in value. It's a huge lie because everything is based off of this hidden inflationary agenda. But I think you will see the realization that, look, if the Fed was if why are they lowering rates on the front end of the curve if they're still 65% away from their target, even using the fake numbers? So you're driving across the country from California to New York, and you decide to stop in Omaha because, well, that's far enough. We've won. We're there. We still have 65% of the way to go, but it's good enough. We'll call Omaha the new New York City. I mean, that's really what it is. And I guess the last thing I'd say is a continued dollar weakness, or what they want. The dollar's been going straight up, not what they want, but they want a decline in the U.S. dollar relative to other currencies. That's what Trump is talking about. He doesn't have the power to do it, but he is talking about it. That's what he wants. And if they were to manufacture somehow, whether it be through quantitative easing and inflation, a lower dollar, which hurts in other areas because that pushes pressure up on interest rates, it's a sticky wicket they find themselves in, but that would also support higher precious metals prices. So it doesn't have to be a calamity. It could be just a weakening dollar, high inflation, and lower interest rates. And what do you know? That's exactly what he says he wants. So if that were to happen, you could see those prices realistically. And silver's the most manipulated asset on the planet, period. And that manipulation will break. The BRICS countries are draining the exchanges. China in particular is gobbling up everything that's not nailed down, including concentrate and doré all around the world. 75+% of all of their industrial, mostly solar panels, silver is coming from concentrate that they're buying from miners directly in South America and paying double what the West will, and sending it back home and refining it in China. They're the second largest producer of silver in the world as is, and now a net importer. They're playing the game against us. They're using the suppression that we're stupid enough to put on to accumulate. They're not bitching because they're accumulating. When that time is up, then we will no longer control the commodity prices of the world. It will move to the BRICS exchange. It will move to Moscow, to Dubai, to Shanghai. It will move away from London and the United States because they have been exposed for what they are. I continue to say they're building a BRICS metals exchange, but they started a BRICS grain exchange first. And the guy who's building it was interviewed, and he said, we consume and produce more wheat than the West does, but we don't control the price. It's controlled on COMEX, but that will change with the new BRICS grain exchange. He knows what we're doing on all of the world's commodities. And if they know it with grain, you can bet damn sure they doubly know it in the strategic metals, and they are using that against us. Go ahead, be stupid, suppress the price. We'll stand for delivery. Thank you. And 50 million ounces of silver was delivered off the COMEX in December. Do you see the game? It's called You're Stupid. We're going to take everything from you at stupid prices. You may be good today, but you're doing this to the detriment of your children and grandchildren, and that's the reality of it.
Well, we've got to. I don't know what our country was doing the last 4 years. Okay, in a lot of stuff. It made no sense to me whatsoever. One of the things that didn't make any sense was this whole Russian-Ukraine thing, okay? We just took all of our munitions, sent them over there. We've been fighting this whole thing. We went through all of our strategic oil. It makes no sense why we would be doing that. Those are things to
ban oil drilling.
And ban oil drilling.
And that's why I always said it's too stupid to be stupid. It's just too stupid to be stupid.
It's totally stupid. But here's the thing, Andy, we're going to need a ton of silver to replenish all of that. And are we doing that yet? I don't know. So hopefully we start doing some of that stuff. But Andy, anyway, thank you for coming on today. Do you have a show today on your channel?
Tonight? Not tonight. No, not tonight. We have... Kevin and I won't be on tonight. Normally would. Thank you for asking. We both have family obligations that we must attend to, but and it won't be. And next, I'm actually going to be gone for a couple of weeks, speaking in Vancouver at the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference. Shout out to Jay Martin and the Vancouver Resource VRIC Conference. It's one of the premier ones of the year, and one of only two I go to. So I will see you back in a couple of weeks.
I think the 28th is going to be at the end of the month. I've also got a sales conference for my company. I'll be out in Denver. So we'll miss a couple, but I'll try to take some of the footage from this, and we'll do like a shorter version for anybody that didn't catch the whole thing, and we'll put that out. So you guys have that. But if you want to get a hold of Andy or Miles Franklin, info@milesfranklin.com. Let them know Stacking Surfer sent you.
Even if it's just for the price list, you'll be glad you did.
It'll be good for you guys. So anyway, we got to run, but I want to thank everybody for coming today. And until next time, peace out.
See you, brother.